The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The goal of the League of Women Voters of the United States is to empower citizens to shape better communities worldwide.
Welcome to today's Candidate Forum, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Midland area and Midland County Senior Services. You will be hearing from 3 candidates vying for the Midland County Sheriff position. The candidates are Republicans Art Beagle, Myron Green, and Laura Lee. I am Kim Steinke, President of the League of Women Voters of the Midland area. League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that works at national, state, and local levels. Membership in the League is open to all people ages 16 and over, both women and men. We are committed to the informed and active participation of citizens in government, and we neither support nor oppose candidates. We are always welcoming new members. Information about joining the League is available on our website, www.lwv-midland.org, or you can ask any League member about it. Here's an overview of how today's program will run. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following that, I'll pose a series of questions to which each candidate will be allotted a 2-minute response. After all have responded to a question, each will have an opportunity for a 1-minute reply. The candidates have participated in a drawing to determine who will be the first speaker. The order will be rotated throughout the forum. Following the question and answer period, each candidate will have an opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement. Jane Worth is our official timer, is seated next to me, and I will be letting you know when you've reached 15 seconds left of your 2 minutes or 1-minute response. When time is up, I will stop the speaker, allowing only the completion of a sentence. Before we get started, I ask that the audience refrain from any reactions to what's being said in terms of putting something in the chat window. As again, I want to reemphasize, the only thing that should go in the chat window are questions. Now let's get started with the candidates for Sheriff of Midland County. The candidates are, and I'm going to list them in the order in which the drawing occurred, and have you do a brief introduction, each candidate. So Laura Lee, if you would, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Lee, and I'm running for Sheriff of Midland County. Great to be here today.
The next is Myron Green.
Myron Green here. Thank everyone for tuning in and hearing from the candidates today.
And Art Beagle.
Yes, my name is Arthur Beagle, and I'm running for Sheriff of Midland County. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Laura has drawn the privilege of being the first to go. And you have 2 minutes. And your question is, what is the key issue facing the sheriff's office, and how do you plan to address it?
The key issue that I see facing the sheriff's office currently is hiring and retaining employees. All law enforcement agencies right now are going through a challenge in recruiting and retaining their employees. We have quite a few employees that are of the age to retire, which means we'll be hiring quite a few. And the sheriff's office is the employees. So it's very, very important to hire and train and recruit and retain good employees when we get them. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge, because once you have filled the office with great employees like we currently have, and if we can continue that, then we can continue to serve the residents of Midland County to the best of our ability and to take care of them and keep them safe.
Okay, and my apologies, because I should have given you the chance first to make your 2-minute opening statement. So go ahead.
So my opening statement is, good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. The role of a sheriff is an administrator responsible for overseeing the administration of law enforcement services and programs within our county. This includes managing and operating a safe jail, and through executive law enforcement powers, preserving the public peace to maintain a safe and secure community. This is achieved by managing the established command structure of employees and the day-to-day operations of the multiple divisions. Your sheriff facilitates the resources and training to allow the deputies within every division to serve and protect our community, and is also responsible for relationship building with other law enforcement partners and community leaders to execute joint operations and emergency planning. My number one priority is the safety and security of our residents. Individuals and families need to feel safe within our community. My second priority is fiscal responsibility, as static to decreasing levels of funding have increased the demand on law enforcement services. My third priority would be continuing the valuable programs and partnerships that focus on children, the elderly, mental health, preventing victims of abuse, and the reduction of controlled substance abuse within our community. My academic background includes a bachelor's in business administration and management from Northwood University and a degree in criminal justice. My law enforcement career with the sheriff's office started as a certified corrections deputy at the Midland County Jail, which provided the opportunity to gain extensive knowledge of maintaining a safe and secure facility. My current administrative position provides the functional understanding of the administrative processes and the daily interaction with the multiple divisions of our sheriff's office. My private sector experience includes project management, contracts and negotiations, HR, vendor procurement, client facilitation, utilizing various software applications and technology, and customer service. Community involvement is also an important role of the sheriff. I serve on several local boards. I'm a member of several local, state, and national professional organizations, and I also actively support many local, state, national, and global nonprofit organizations.
You're perfect. I was just going to say time. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Next up is Myron. Myron, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Good afternoon. Even though the position of sheriff is elected, for me, running for sheriff is not about politics at all. It's personal. Having been born and raised and employed with the sheriff's office over half my life, I have a vested interest in the leadership of the office and in keeping our community safe. I am passionate and committed to ensuring that the most qualified candidate is elected. The historical role has always been about keeping law and order, protecting the community, and running the county jail. This remains true to this day. However, as societies have evolved, so have the laws, training standards, and equipment, and the demands put on law enforcement agencies and county jails, in addition to the draw that they put on the county budget. The role of the sheriff, you must have the education, the training, and the experience as a police officer to know criminal, civil, and constitutional law, traffic laws, use of force, emergency vehicle operation, and policies and procedures. You must know the tools, technology, and tactics used in law enforcement and the tactics used when criminals commit crimes. You must know the laws, rules, and regulations of the Department of Corrections that govern our correctional facilities. You must also understand how to create policies and procedures and understand the incident command structure to work alongside outside agencies when emergencies occur. I believe the people of Midland County expect and deserve a sheriff that is a trained, certified, and experienced law enforcement officer who will keep them safe. I believe the people of Midland County expect a sheriff that has administrative experience to manage the financial and human resources necessary to run an efficient road patrol and maintain a safe and secure jail. For the past 18 years, I've been on employee executive boards where I've earned experience in labor laws, contract negotiations, personnel issues such as grievances and layoffs, and the county's budgeting process. No other candidate has my diverse background and level of experience and qualifications. Please visit my website, myrongriefersheriff.com, for my full bio and qualifications. And I look forward to serving as your sheriff, and I ask for your support and your vote on August 4th. Thank you.
Okay. Now it's your turn to also answer the first question, which is, again, I'll repeat it. What is the key issue facing the sheriff's office, and how do you plan to address it? You have 2 minutes.
Well, there is no one key issue. There are several issues, with the first being the budget. Due to COVID-19 and the flood that we just went through this past month, that has affected revenue at the state level, and that's going to affect the revenue sharing with the county. It also is going to affect the property values, which in turn influences and affects the county's budget from that the lost revenue there. Another challenge that I feel is important is the opioids and methamphetamine issue in Midland County. And then we also have, as Laura had mentioned, the issues regarding our seniors and our youth in regard to identity theft, fraud, and drug abuse. So I will use my training, my experience, and my education to address all of these issues, which includes working with the Board of Commissioners to ensure that the funds are secured to run our office, both the jail, the road patrol, and every other division that we have. So that's about it for that.
Thank you. Okay, Arthur, it's now your opportunity to give your opening statement. You need to take it off mute, Arthur. Thank you. There you go.
Good afternoon. My goal as sheriff will be to protect and serve the people of Midland County and the employees in a professional manner with transparency and accountability. I will exercise discretion when allowed and serve with compassion, dignity, and respect for the people of Midland County. I will help the people of Midland County whenever possible. I will protect the people and their property and protect the people who cannot protect themselves. I will also protect the people that have been arrested and keep them safe. As a leader, I can only lead by example and expect employees to do the same. I have 5 years experience in the jail as a shift leader. 3 things that job taught me are: in order to get respect, you must give respect. People will treat other people the way they are treated. And last, your reputation in the workplace is only as good as your word. With the COVID-19 virus and the flooding and property loss from the dam failures that left Midland County a disaster area, I have no idea what the future has in store for Midland County. All I know for sure is that in law enforcement, sometimes you can control the circumstances, and sometimes the circumstances control you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now have the opportunity for each of you to make a 1-minute response. Laura, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I think I would just continue to expound on what I said before. I think everything flows from the employees. If you are managing correctly, then you are facilitating those resources for those employees to go out and do their job. That means the road patrol can go out and patrol the roads. The employees in the jail can make sure that it's a safe and secure facility. Animal control can help with any issues that we have in our county with animals. The records division can supply the records that need to be given to the public through FOIA and issuing gun permits, stuff like that. The Detective Bureau will have their resources to do the investigations that they need to do, and court security will have the support that they need to make sure that the courthouse is secure so that people can come in and have their right to have a trial and do their business within the courthouse. So I truly think that everything stems from the employees, and that is the biggest part of the sheriff's office. And as the sheriff, that's your macro management level.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Myron, would you like to have a 1-minute reply?
Yes, I would. One of the other major issues facing law enforcement currently is the issues that are going on in our communities and this nation with regard to excessive force. And as a leader of an organization, you have to have that head on. You have to be open and honest about it, and you have to lead with integrity and honesty. And that the issues that have currently or recently occurred with the George Floyd, it was a tragic event that occurred, but you have to be able to address those hard issues, and need to do that in a positive way that the community, that you can earn their trust and respect, and work alongside with them and partner with them for a safer community.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. And Arthur, do you want to have an opportunity for a 1-minute reply?
Sure. I'd just like to say that what I've heard is all good information, and there is nothing that I would change for anything that anybody has said. I think our society is going through some social times that are going to be difficult. And I do agree that the employees are the backbone of the sheriff's office, and they should reflect the behavior of the leader as they deal with the public. So not being a boss, I would say do as I do, not do as I say. Thank you.
Well, and you will have the opportunity to be the first one to answer the second question. And it is, how will you enhance community trust with the public, including support for diversity?
First of all, you're going to have to communicate with the public. And one thing I learned in the jail is to be able to communicate with people on an equal level, despite our circumstances in the area or what's going on at that time. I believe we have all good people. Some of the things that I've seen on the news as far as the improper use of force, in Mr. Floyd's example, I don't know that anybody in Midland County was ever trained to use a chokehold. In fact, we were trained to stay away from the neck and head area. Other than that, the trust is going to have to be earned, and the respect to the people will have to be given in order to get that respect back. Thank you.
Laura, what is your response to this question?
I think the biggest thing is for everybody to come together and partner together. And I think in order to do that, you need to be able to have a respectful dialogue, which includes listening to both sides, and not only listening, but taking the time to understand where somebody else is coming from, give them a little bit of grace to have an emotional response, and then work from that and start building a platform that you can work together as a community. The issue is not going to be solved by law enforcement, and it's not going to be solved by the people. It's going to be solved by everybody working together to come together, and that balance between protecting the public when police and law enforcement have to physically restrain someone, and also from the community in respecting what law enforcement is doing and hopefully understanding that. I think everybody would agree that the good law enforcement officers, the one thing they cannot stand is a bad cop. What happened in Minneapolis should never have happened. When somebody's in restraints like that, you do not use of force after that point. And I think we can come together as a community and come up with a solution where we're all respecting and listening to each other and solving this issue.
Okay, thank you. Myron, what is your response to the question?
Can you repeat it, please?
Yes. How will you enhance community trust with the public, including support for diversity?
Okay. First and foremost, as I touched on earlier, transparency. When an incident occurs, you have to be upfront and honest about it. Most law enforcement agencies have in-car cameras and now body cameras. And that was a huge step to protect citizens in transparency, and it also protects the officers against false accusations. The next thing you need to do is hire good candidates. I agree there should be a system to track disciplinary issues or excessive force complaints. Additionally, you have to have clear policies and procedures that make it very clear that excessive force, racism, discrimination, personal bias, any violation of rights will not be tolerated. Everyone is entitled to protection under the law, regardless of who you are or what your skin color is. The next is training, beginning with the academy. You certainly have to train on use of force, but you also have to train on cultural awareness, diversity, de-escalation, and you incorporate into the field training of new deputies. You include that. Another thing that I would use to build trust is use the various platforms of media. Everything is going to electronic and digital age, and the news and contacts are at your fingertips. So that is one thing that I pledge to do, is to be available to the public. And again, just be open and honest and transparent and interact with them and partner with the agencies in the community to build trust and a cooperative effort to, again, build our community and make it a safe community that it is. Thank you.
Thank you. The next is the 1 minute round. Arthur, do you want to have a response for 1 minute? You need to unmute. Arthur, you need to unmute.
I'm trying. There we go. I'm sorry. As far as the diversity goes, we live in a town that's very diversified with many races. One of the first things I learned in the jail, that when you are dealing with people, we used to say in the jail, we only see two colors. We see orange or brown. Orange is the jumpsuit for the inmates, and brown was the uniform for the officers. So those are the only two colors we saw. Skin color had nothing to do with anything. You need to be able to project that to the people, especially now with all the controversy that's been created with systemic racism in police departments. And I'm pretty sure I can tell you that I have never witnessed any of that here in Midland County. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person, Laura, do you want a 1 minute reply?
Sure. I think that Midland is very, very lucky as a community. I think we have great employees that are not racially biased like some other agencies have to deal with. I think racism has no place in our society, and it doesn't have any place professionally in any administration I would be a part of, nor in my personal life. I think the key is bringing everybody together for unity, and that's where solutions can be found. And I would go back to, again, it goes back to respect, communication, and being able to listen and understand to the other side. And I think that's the basis of where you start, and then everything else from that point forward would fall together, and we can actually start making some steps towards a solution. But we are very fortunate here in Midland that we have a great community, and it is actually very accepting and diverse.
Thank you very much. And last, Myron, do you want to also have the 1 minute reply?
Sure. As the other two have already touched on, we do have a diverse community because of Dow Chemical. And one issue or one thing to do to address any issue that the community might be facing is open and honest dialogue. And again, like I said, as an elected official, you have to be open and available to the people you are responsible to and who you're accountable to. So, as being a leader, you have to be accountable for your actions, and you're also accountable for the actions of the employees under your supervision. So I believe, again, we have issues in every community, but Midland is very good, and we have a lot of services that are available to bring people together to address the issues that we might be facing.
Thank you. Okay. Before I read the next question, for the benefit of our audience, I want to provide a little background. Community Corrections is a state and locally funded program based on Michigan Community Corrections Act, Public Act 511, established in 1988 to encourage low-cost rehabilitative punishment programs as alternatives to jail or prison sentences for non-violent offenders. The goals are to reduce prison admissions for non-assaultive felons and improve the use of local jails while maintaining public safety. Our jail utilizes this program using outside professional agencies for in-jail therapy, GED high school completion, and employability skills training. With that understanding, the next question is, what is your opinion on expanding the use of the Community Corrections Program to provide rehabilitative punishment programs as alternatives to jail or prison sentences for nonviolent offenders? And Laura, you're the first up on that.
The rehabilitation programs are extremely important. I think anytime anybody has an opportunity to make their life better and maybe work in a positive direction from some decisions that they made that were mistakes is an absolute win-win for everybody. It's a win for that individual. It's a win for their families. It's a win for the community. And I think we should do everything we can to help them. There are, unfortunately, offenders that are violent criminals that need to be taken out of society so that society is protected. But I think the majority of people that are in jail and in prison just made bad decisions, and they might not have had the tools at their disposal to correct their behavior. And if you have somebody who wants to make a change, I think we should do everything we can to make sure that they have any program necessary to change the direction of their life. And that's extremely important.
Thank you. Myron, you're next.
All right, thank you. Yes, I am in full support of any rehabilitation that we can do to keep people out of the correctional facility. We have many resources in Midland and programs such as the drug courts, the mental health courts, that work to ensure that those people struggling with addiction or struggling with mental health issues are offered the services that they need and appropriate services that they need to address the issues that might be causing the underlying issue of why they're committing the offense in the first place. So again, I'm in full support of that, and that will be certainly an avenue that I would be willing to explore and expand on as sheriff, because again, our system is often overcrowded with nonviolent offenders where they need treatment, counseling, as opposed to the punitive measures of incarceration. And as Laura touched on, there are people that are just violent and they cannot be rehabilitated. And therefore, then they do deserve to be incarcerated, whether it be in the local jail or in the prisons. So again, I'm in full support of anything that we can do to help those people that made poor choices through addiction or mental health issues and that are not appropriate for incarceration.
Thank you. And I believe, Arthur, you have the last. Oh, unmute.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the community corrections and expanding that program. We were blessed with a jail that has a work release pod facility, and I'd like to see that utilized more to get some people into some education, training programs, or apprenticeships in a trade possibly. But try to get the people that you can work with and you can help, get them some support for when they leave the jail, that they have new playmates and new playgrounds to go to and be less apt to fall back into their old habits or old ways. And that being said, I would also like to see a program expanded to accommodate the women inmates too, because we have many women that are nonviolent and could probably benefit from some job training or some work release time in that fashion. I'd also like to see the inmates doing some community work as far as helping with the community gardens and policing up paper or picking up Main Street or any different things that we could find. And Habitat for Humanity would be another one I'd like to see if we can't work out some kind of a joint venture.
Thank you. Laura, would you like a 1-minute response?
I think I'll just add to what I said before, that whenever anybody wants to make a change in their life, that's where the change starts. Somebody has to want to make a change. But if they want to make that change, I think it is so important that as a community, we support them and provide the tools of different support groups, skill set learning, whatever it is that they need that we can help provide to get them on the right path. And it makes our community better. It can help them exponentially within their families. And it's a win-win for everybody, even if it's just a small little increment of change. And I think we should do everything we can to do that, especially if we can find different avenues that don't cost very much. Then we're exponentially building on our community and saving money at the same time.
Thank you very much. And the next person for the 1 minute would be Myron.
Yes, thank you. I got to agree with Art where he touched on the work release program. That is something that we used to have, and still the availability is there for it. But I certainly would like to, partner with some of the nonprofits in town and some of the faith-based organizations that we can partner with, and other organizations, like Shelter House, that we could use to train these people that might need skills, or the schools to get them their GED, so that we can give them employability skills or education so that when they do get out, they can be employed and be a productive member of society. So again, I would just certainly support whatever we can do and to expand that to help the people get what they need.
Thank you. All right, Myron, you're the first to answer the next question. What measures would you use to de-escalate a physically threatening situation?
Okay. I've been in law enforcement almost 30 years, and every day we work to de-escalate situations. But again, and just being open and honest, is that there are times where there simply isn't time to de-escalate, or the individual is so intent on doing what they were going to do, whether it's a mental health issue or they're suicidal, and we have to react to their actions. But certainly we, again, like I already touched on, we try to de-escalate situations every time. Out on the road, we know that the most important weapon is our mouth. We have our verbal skills, and we try to use those before anything turns into or escalates into a physical confrontation. But again, all you can just do is try to calm and reassure the person and let them know that we're there to help them. We're not there to always take someone to jail. We're there to find out what the problem is and see if we can help them out with it. And I think that, again, not every situation is clear cut. Most decisions are made in split-second decisions. And again, there are times where you just can't de-escalate situations, and you just have to go with the flow and react to their actions. So obviously you just try to talk to them and reassure them and calm and reassure them and let them know that we're there to help them.
Okay, thank you. Arthur, you're next.
All my training with de-escalating came from being in the jail. And I feel that that is good training, because when you walk into a pod and you're outnumbered 56-1 and you have no weapon, and you couldn't have, because if you did, they'd take it away from you. You have to be able to de-escalate with communication. And Myron is exactly right. Communication is the key. You may find yourself having to put on a different hat, be a teacher, be a counselor, be a preacher, or a cop, but the situation may allow you to do those things. And as Myron said, there can be situations which are not going to allow you to exercise some of those things, and you're going to have to respond with your training and what you've been taught to do. Nobody wants to see anybody be harmed. Everybody wants to go home at the end of the night, at the end of their shift. It's communication is the key. A little bit of empathy and understanding will go a long, long ways.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Laura, your turn.
Would you repeat the question just so that I make sure I stay on task?
The question is, what measures would you use to de-escalate a physically threatening situation?
Okay. I think Arthur Beagle touched on it the best, that when I was in the jail as a corrections officer, that's where I was able to escalate and de-escalate situations. And the goal is always to stay de-escalated and not have to use force. Communication is absolutely key. One of the things that I found was that listening a lot will solve many problems. Sometimes they just need somebody to vent to. Sometimes they're just upset and need somebody to listen. A lot of times, situations that could potentially lead to use of force are because of mental health. And I think a focus on mental health skill set and dealing with that could go a long ways in helping law enforcement to deal with situations that don't necessarily have to turn into a physical hands-on response. But it is true. There are situations where in order to protect yourself and protect the public, you do have to deal with an immediate threat. And unfortunately, based on the suspect and their reaction or the individual that you're dealing with, they don't leave you a choice. Every law enforcement officer, including myself, we always try to use every avenue at our disposal and with our training from our academies to not have to use force. But you do have to protect the public and you do have to protect yourself. So it's a constant balancing act. You're constantly going back and forth between skill sets. And that's how I handled different situations when I was in the jail.
Thank you. Myron, do you have a 1-minute reply?
Yes. I think as both the other candidates touched on, empathy and listening are key. Again, whenever you go to a call, or if you were working in the jail and somebody's upset, you have to listen to them to find out what the issue is before you can help them address it. And again, as the other candidates touched on, getting into a physical confrontation is the last resort. We're there to help people. We're not always there to take people to jail. We definitely don't go to work and say, who am I going to go fight with today? Who am I going to get into physical altercation with? So again, we try to use conflict resolution skills, verbal skills, empathy, and like Art touched on, you do wear many hats as a police officer and out on the road when we handle these calls. You have to be a counselor, a preacher, and all of those different roles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arthur?
Again, I agree with Myron and Laura that you don't want to use physical force, because if you use physical force, there's not only a chance that the inmate or the arrestee may be injured, but you may be injured as well. And if you can't work and pursue your livelihood, then that's a minus to the department, because you are an investment. Other than that, I I can't stress enough that the use of deadly force needs to be absolutely necessary. There can't be any openings where you could have done this or that, because that's going to come back to haunt you.
Thank you. And Laura, your 1 minute?
I just want to touch a little bit more on the interpersonal and personal communication skills. The one thing I did find, and I actually find this dealing with people all the time, is that usually what they're acting like they're upset about is not the real problem. And if you are able to deal with people and interact with people, communicate with them, respect them enough to listen, you can usually find out the root of the problem is not what's going on the surface. And that's where you usually can find the solution. So when I was dealing with inmates in the jail, letting them vent and then talking to them, we would usually figure out that what they were acting like they were upset about was not really the issue. Once you find out what the real issue is, then you can solve that problem.
Thank you. I'm looking at the clock and I'm thinking, rather than to ask another question, I'd like to try to take maybe one from the audience and then work to closing statements. To each of the candidates, do you see your role and the sheriff's department in the current ongoing public demonstrations supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and working towards equality for all races? So the question is, do you see a role for the sheriff's department? And if yes, what role will you play? If not, why not? And Arthur, I'll have you go first.
Thank you. As a sheriff, I would be reluctant to openly support some of the social groups that we are seeing at this time. My personal opinion would be that, but the professional opinion is I can't show favoritism to one group or another. Also, I would make sure that all the groups have the same opportunity to protest peacefully and to have their voices heard. Whether or not I agree with what their agenda is, I don't see that as a major issue as far as the sheriff goes. Thank you.
Thank you. Byron?
Sure, I'll go. As I mentioned early on, transparency and honesty. That is a big role that the sheriff needs to play in dealing with the community. If you watched a week or so ago, the sheriff of Genesee County, he walked with the protesters. I would have no problem walking with the protesters that are protesting social injustice, racism, discrimination, because as I also mentioned earlier, every person is entitled to equal protection under the law.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter where you come from, how much money you have, how much you don't, the color of your skin. And so I feel that the sheriff's role is to partner with the community and address the issues that they might be having. And again, as Art touched on, certainly I would not advocate or support any of the violent criminal actions of the protesters. But I am in full support of protecting everyone's constitutional rights, whether that be Second Amendment, First Amendment speech, the right to peaceably assemble. But once it turns not peaceful or they start committing crimes, that's when we have to do our job.
Okay, thank you. And Laura?
I do think the sheriff would play a crucial role in both solving the issue outside of protests, but also I agree that every citizen has a right to freedom of speech. They have a right to peacefully assemble. They have a right to be heard and to be listened to. And I'm 100% for any kind of peaceful protest and any kind of freedom of speech that allows people to be heard. On the flip side, I also think the sheriff and local law enforcement is responsible for keeping people safe. So whether that is you're at the protest and you are there peacefully making your voice heard, you deserve the right to do that without feeling like you are going to be harmed or something is going to happen to you. We have a duty to protect the public. So I don't agree with at all protests that turn violent. I don't think anybody's property should be destroyed. I don't think things should be lit on fire. I don't think anybody should be hurt, and that innocent people that are standing by should ever be in the wake of a protest. So I think the sheriff plays a vital role in making sure that everyone is heard, can peacefully protest, and fulfill their First Amendment right. But I also think that we ultimately always have to protect the public. And that's a balancing act that the sheriff is always trying to achieve balance. And aside from that, helping the community to be heard ahead of time will solve a lot of the problems and any kind of issues with racism, which, as I've said before, has absolutely no place in our society.
Okay, thank you. I think rather than to do 1-minute responses, to give you guys time, I would like to go to closing statements. And if there's any time left after that, we could maybe take one more question from the audience. Otherwise, all of the questions that have come in the chat room will be documented, and we will make sure that each of you get the questions. So if you want to respond to the people that submitted them, you can. So with that, Laura, I think you're first up on closing arguments.
It has been a pleasure to be here today. I will reiterate that as an administrator, leading the employees is the crucial component of continuing the success of the sheriff's office, and the deputies within every division are the key. I will be dedicated to facilitating an environment for all the deputies to have the training and the resources necessary to be fully equipped to perform their daily duties. This will have a direct correlation in the success of the entire organization in fulfilling our purpose, which is serving the citizens. That is why we're here. We're here to serve the citizens and make sure that everyone is protected. I have the diversified skill set of education experience to lead our Midland County Sheriff's Office into the future. It would be an honor and a privilege to continue to serve our community as your next sheriff. Together, we can continue to make Midland County a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Today, I'm asking for your vote and support in the August 4th primary to be your next Midland County Sheriff, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Byron?
Okay. It's important to have a good working relationship with the Board of Commissioners to secure the necessary funding for the Sheriff's Office, and I believe I have that. The Sheriff must possess the education, the training, and experience as a law enforcement officer to effectively lead and manage a law enforcement agency. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for 27 years total. I'm the only candidate that is a trained, certified, and experienced police officer. I have experience in every division of the office, and I understand the overall operations of the office. For the past 18 years, I've been on the employee executive boards involved in contract negotiations, the county's budgeting process, and personnel matters, such as grievance resolutions and layoffs. The sheriff must have the respect and confidence of the staff and of the community that they serve. I have the respect within the law enforcement community through my job performance and within the community at large through my history of support and volunteerism. The sheriff must be active in the community to know the needs of the community. I've been active in the community for decades, not just at election time. People know that I'm a person of action and not words. Ultimately, I'll use my training, education, and overall experience to lead the sheriff's office and keep Midland safe. Thank you.
Okay, Arthur.
I recently saw an interview with Spike Lee, and he made a comment that I firmly agree with. And he said that no one is born a racist. And I truly believe that. Racism has no place in our society, as Laura said, and it certainly has no place in a law enforcement setting. I believe our community is very diversified. I believe that we have lots of good people here, and I do believe that everybody's constitutional rights need to be protected. Whether I agree with their point or not has nothing to do with it. Other than that, I'd be happy to serve as your sheriff. You're going to have to be able to, like Myron said, you're going to have to be able to work with the county commissioners and other groups, because we can all sit down and say, this is what it's going to cost to run the sheriff's department. But that's only half the battle. The other half of the battle will be to come up with the money.
And that's a wrap. Thank you.
Other than that, I'd like to thank you very much for this opportunity. And I used to work with Myron and Laura, and I miss them both. And I wish you all good luck.
Thank you. All right. That's it. Candidates for the Midland County Sheriff have given you a few of their views. We hope something said here today will help you make up your mind about which candidate will receive your vote in the August 4th primary election. I want to thank the candidates for participating in this forum. Even more important, a sincere thank you goes to the candidates for your willingness to serve as elected officials in these challenging times of governing. And to our listeners and viewers, thank you for your time and interest in watching this forum and for your questions. We believe it is vital that citizens demonstrate informed and active participation in our government. So please be sure to vote. Polls will open on Election Day, Tuesday, August 4th at 7 a.m. and remain open till 8 p.m. If you are voting in person, be sure you know the location of your designated voting place and have your necessary ID with you. Also, all registered voters in Michigan have the right to vote by mail. Due to COVID-19, all registered voters have been mailed an absentee ballot application for August and November elections. If you have not already done so, you are encouraged to fill out those applications and return them to the appropriate official in order to vote by mail for these elections. Absentee ballots must be returned to the clerk's office before the close of the polls on Tuesday, August 4th. If you have any questions on absentee voting or any other aspect of the election process, please contact the appropriate clerk's office. For more information on candidates and election-related matters, please go to vote411.org, our online voter guide that we publish. It will be available by the end of this week. And with that, I want to extend a final thank you to the people who have made this program possible. To our co-sponsor, Midland County Senior Center, Trina Winans, for hosting the Zoom presentation for her Lunchtime Learners program. To Matt Richardson, manager of MCTV and Library Communications, for making this forum available online. Thanks also to the following contributors from the League of Women Voters: Sue McCollister, Catherine Redwine, and Jane Worth. And again, before signing off, please remember and vote on August 4th. Thank you, everyone.